Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Denisya Maharani with student number 211304211. And in this today's video, I'm going to be talking about the summary of some videos of intermediate listening that I have watched. And yeah, so without any further ado, let's jump to the first video. Okay, so the title of the first video is What is Schizophrenia? So what I got from that video is that schizophrenia is the most serious disorder that we have in psychiatry. And it's much more than hallucination. It's an illness where the person's main problem is being psychotic. With psychosis, you are not able to tell what's real and what's not real. And schizophrenia has several symptoms. And the illness can be defined using the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The first one is delusion, which are fixed false beliefs and the persons cannot be convinced they are wrong. And second is hallucination, so this can affect any of your five senses. The more common hallucination though are auditory, which are hearing things that aren't there, and the visual, which are seeing things that aren't there. The third one is disorganized thinking. So we call this a formal thought disorder. This is usually something that other people notice by the way you talk, because you may answer questions in a way that's only slightly related to what the person said. It makes sense that in your mind, but the person listening isn't quite sure what you mean. And you might hear people say things like you are talking in code, and that's because what you say sounds related but not really. And if you talk for a while, the person listening might not even remember what they asked. And another way you can experience this is having your thoughts get derailed, such as you are switching from topic to another topic. Number 4 is disorganized behavior. So these major levels of internal disorganizations that get in the way of daily functioning. And another way it can look in a person has outbursts of agitation, because sometimes this can look like outbursts of loving for seemingly no reason. Number 4 is negative symptoms. The best way to think about the negative symptom is the sufferer do not respond to the environment in the usual expected way. And it is usually not something that you are notice about themselves. What other people will notice is they will see dramatically decreased facial expression or complete lack of eye contact. So the failure to initiate movement or speech. And these symptoms cause serious problems in social life, work, academic life, or in your family life. When the sufferer is delusional, it's real to them, and they only realize it's delusional after the symptoms have passed. And they don't pass in a couple of hours, at least not when it's from schizophrenia. When it comes to hallucinations, some people can experience continual voices talking in the background that they are able to ignore. Their ability to ignore depends on the volume of the voices and what they are saying. And another feature of schizophrenia is that the sets it's apart from the other illnesses where psychosis is present. The cognitive deficits. These cognitive deficits are things like memory problem, life planning, and disorganizational problem, impaired thought processing, and the psychotic person with schizophrenia will have a history of poor functionings like serious academic problem or inability to keep a job or serious problem in a job. And we don't know exactly what the causes of schizophrenia is. And it can be inherited and run in the family, but there have been associated links between pre-complication and older paternal age. But we don't have a strong enough link to establish these things as causes. It tends to show up somewhere between late teens and early 30s, but the peak age of onset is early to mid 20s for men and late 20s for women. The first question. What are the causes of schizophrenia? The answer is there is no one who knows about the exact causes of schizophrenia, but it is possible be inherited and run in a family. The second one is what are the symptoms that can be seen in schizophrenia person? The first one is delusion, which are fixed false belief and person cannot be convinced they are wrong. The second is hallucination. This can affect any of your five senses. The more common hallucination though are auditory, which are hearing things that aren't there, and visual, which are seeing things that aren't there. The third one is disorganized thinking. We call this a formal thought disorder. This is usually something that other people notice by the way you talk. You may answer a question in a way that's only slightly related to what the person said. It makes sense in your mind, but the person listening isn't quite sure what you mean. And you might hear people say things like, you are talking in a code, and that's because what you say sounds related, but not really. And if you talk for a while, the person listening might not even remember what they asked. Another way you can experience is having your thoughts and get derailed, such you are switching from topic to another topic. Number 4 is disorganized behavior. This is a major levels of internal disorganizations that get in a way of daily functioning. Another way it can look, the person has outbursts of agitation. Sometimes this can look like an outburst of laughing for seemingly no reason. Number 5 is negative symptoms. The best way to think about these negative symptoms is the sufferers do not respond to the environment in a usual expected way. And it is usually not something that you notice about themselves. What other people will notice is they will see dramatically decreased facial expression or complete lack of eye contact or failure to initiate movement or speech. The third question is, why is the hallucination of schizophrenia different? The answer is, it is because the hallucination that the patient can make a person experience continual voices talking in the background that they are able to ignore. Their ability to ignore it depends on the volume of the voices and what they are saying. It can affect their social life, work, academic life, or even in a family life. Number 4, what are the differences between bipolar disorder and schizophrenia? The answer is the big differences in someone with bipolar disorder who becomes psychotic and the person with schizophrenia. If you were to look at both people side by side while they are in a psychotic state, the person with bipolar disorder will have prominent mood symptoms like depression or mania, and the person with schizophrenia will not. The person with bipolar disorder will have delusions that usually match their mood state at the time. If the person is depressed, their delusion might have excessively guilty seems to them, like they don't deserve to live or they are disappointed in the world in some way. Whereas the person with schizophrenia will have mood-neutral delusion that are usually but not always bizarre. A non-bizarre delusion would be that all doctors in the hospital are poisoning you by putting toxins in your pills. Also, the psychotic person with schizophrenia will have a history of poor functioning, like serious academic problems or inability to keep a job or serious problems on a job. Whereas the person with bipolar disorder who is psychotic at the time will have a functioning level that was higher prior to their episode coming on. Number 5, how the medication help in schizophrenia? The answer is the medication help keep the positive symptoms like the delusions and hallucination under control. Some of the newer antipsychotic medication can help with the negative symptoms. It is usually remain at some level. Social skills training, though, can help with some of these things like the eye contact and improving the conversation. Number 6, how people usually recognize that someone has disorganized thinking. The answer is, other people notice by the way you talk. You might answer a question in a way that only slightly related to what the person said. It makes sense in your mind, but the person listening isn't quite sure what you mean. And you might hear people say things like, you are talking in a code, and that's because what you say sounds related, but not really. And if you talk for a while, the person listening might not even remember what they asked. Another way you can experience this is having your thoughts get derailed, such as you are switching from topic to another topic. The topic might be loosely connected and make sense to you, but the person listening, it sounds like you are just trailing way off topic. We call this tangential thinking. When the trail off doesn't get back and the original point, there are many people who are naturally talkative and include excessive detail in their stories. The second video entitled, Is Butterfly Effect Real? Okay, so the butterfly effect is usually explained by the idea that the butterfly flaps its wing in Brazil and causes a hurricane in Texas. But it is not about it. It is about how a teeny changes in a big system can have a complex result. In this case, could be anything from weather pattern, so how big groups of asteroids move or how less people interact. And yes, for example, of a tall a wild rat at a carnival. If you don't know what that is, it is a rotating and shifting platform with shell-like cars, each rotating on a smaller circle with people inside it. And it has rule and follow this rule rigidly. And the platform rotates the same every time, and the charts can only rotate around the specific point. And the butterfly effect theory was originally discovered by an MIT mathematician and meteorologist Edward Lawrence, who was using an old computer to calculate weather pattern. And Lawrence was successfully combined the two disciplines to create chaos theory. And during the 1980s, Lawrence searched for a means of predicting the weather, as he found linear models to be ineffective. In that experiment to model a weather prediction, he entered the initial condition, and the result was surprising, a somewhat a different prediction from this, and he deduced that the weather must turn on a dime, and a tiny changes in the initial condition had enormous long-term implication. And chaos theory, by definition, deals with complex systems whose behavior is highly sensitive to slight changes in condition. It appears to be chaos, but it is actually governed by the same rules as everything else in nature, science, and the universe. And chaos theory was groundbreaking when it was discovered because it threw off classical physics, Isaac Newton's law of natural equal and opposite reaction and such. We're imagining in a clockwork universe, not in one field with apparent chaos. Even a teeny changes in something with as many moving parts as the universe would mean an assumption we make would be astronomically wrong. And chaos theory is an attempt to approximate and understand all the people getting on the thought award and how a thought award will react to their action. And the original model Lawrence was working on appeared to spit out chaos until it was scrapped, and then it looked like a butterfly. It didn't get its name from actual butterfly, but it's from the grab of the chaos becoming order. The first question: how Edward Lawrence found the chaos theory? The answer is he ran a simulation and wanted to see it again. The first time he put it on the data to 6 decimal places, but figured out that the second time shows a tiny fraction of a degree wouldn't matter. So he only used 3 decimal places in the end. Because he cut off a few fraction of fraction, the whole simulation completely changed. It was unrecognizable, and that's when the crab hit the counter. That was the story behind the finding of the chaos theory. Number 2, why is the chaos theory also known as butterfly effect? The answer is the original model Lawrence was working on appeared to spit out chaos until it was scrapped and then it looked like a butterfly. It didn't get its name from the actual butterfly, but from the grab of chaos becoming order. Number 3, why is chaos theory was groundbreaking when it was discovered? The answer is because it threw off classical physics, Isaac Newton's law of natural equal and opposite reaction and such. We imagine it in a clockwork universe and no one filled with apparent chaos. Number 4. What is the example of the butterfly effect that changed the history? The answer is the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna rejecting Adolf Hitler's application twice. In the early 90s, a young Hitler applied for art school and was rejected, possibly by a Jewish professor. By his own estimation and that of the scholar, this rejection went on to shape his metamorphosis from an aspiring bohemian artist into the human manifestation of evil. We can only speculate as how history would have been different, but it is safe to assume that a great deal of the tragedy could have been avoided if Hitler had applied himself to watercolor, not to genocide. Number 5. What is the logic behind the butterfly effects? The answer it is based on the simple observable fact that a small input can have a large output. A pebble can start an avalanche. A single spark can light a ringing fire, and that input can be the output of an even tinier input, and so on. So that the arbitrary small input, that flap of a butterfly's wings, can through a train of effects and produce an enormous output. Okay, so let's we jump to the third video that is about how gender equality benefits to everyone. Okay, so yes, feminine is often seen as rebellion against men. Feminine are man-haters, aggressive, isolated, and attractive women with hairy armpits. But feminism is defined as the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is theory of political, economic, and social equality between the sexes. And this may mean something different from everyone. It just means that everybody should deserve respect. And as Malala Yousafzai, as 19 years old Pakistani activist for female education, once said that feminism is just another word of equality. So the truth is that everybody can be a feminist, woman and man. Your physical appearance, interests, behavior, armpits, no one of this can stop you from being a favor of equality. And feminism is needed because women can wear anything they want without being scared of being raped, as if the clothes they wear will cause their physical and mental aggression, as if they were provoking their own assault by wearing the things they want to wear. And feminism is needed because boys who don't do boy things, who want to play with dolls instead of cars, who want to wear pink clothes instead of blue ones, are bullied. And moreover, feminism is needed because women who don't shave are considered a less woman, as if hair wasn't something natural from our human bodies. Feminism is needed. Women are paid less than men for the same job position in many places. And feminism is needed because we still have meanings for act like girl and act like a man. Feminism is needed because girls can play soccer, boys can read paints, book, and etc. The first question is, what is feminism? So feminism is defined as the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is a theory of political, economic, and social equality between the sexes. This may mean something different from everyone. It just means that everybody should deserve respect. Number 2, what is the assumptions that people have about feminism? The answer is feminism is often seen as a rebellion against men. Feminists are man-haters, aggressive, isolated, and attractive women with hairy armpits. Number 3, is that true that everyone could be feminist? Give a supporting idea about this. The answer is Malala Yousafzai, a 19 years old Pakistani activist for female education, once said that feminist is just another word for equality. So the truth is that everybody can be a feminist, woman and man. Your physical appearance, interests, behavior, armpits, no one of these things can stop you from being a favor of equality. Number 4, what are the examples of sexist expression in societies, and explain the meaning behind this expression. Okay, so here are the sexist expressions that you probably ever heard. The first one is act like a girl and act like a man. When people say act like a girl, act like a lady to a woman, they often mean that you have to be sweet, delicate, beautiful, passive, weak, irrational, and submissive. When they say to you, when they say to a man that you are acting like a girl, they often mean that you are overreacting to something, being too sensitive about subject, being dumb, and being stupid. But when people say act like a man or man up, they often mean that you have to be rational, strong, powerful, and successful, and create order and rules. Number 5, why is feminism is needed? The answer is feminism is needed because women can wear anything they want without being scared of being raped, as if the clothes they wear were the cause of their physical and mental aggression. as if they were provoking their own assault by wearing the things they want to wear. Feminism is needed because boys who don't do boy things, who want to play with dolls instead of cars, who want to wear pink clothes instead of the blue ones are bullied. Feminism is needed because women who don't shave are considered less women, as if hair wasn't something natural from our human bodies. Feminism is needed. Women are paid less than men for the same job position in so many places. Feminism is needed because we still have meanings for act like a girls and act like a man. Feminism is needed because girls cannot play soccer, boys cannot read pink books, and as we can see, our lovely sexist society still exists, and we should all deserve fair treatment. Number 6. What can we do to fight sexism? The answer is, in my point of view, I believe that education and information are the remedy for any type of ignorance. So gender equality should be something that every school should talk about, and having simple discussion about the sexist society we live in, or even analyzing how men and women are portrayed in media can be very powerful to open the minds of those who don't realize how bad our current situation is, and to show to them that how much we can do to change it. Number 7. One of the ways to fight sexism and gender inequality is with the family to teach it to the children. What are the attitude of the parents regarding about feminism? So the answer is parents should be open-minded and accept their children chosen and what their children want to play with or needed. The parents need to educate their children to not assault, to not bully, and to be tolerant with other people. Okay, the title of the first video is How the Language You Speak Affects Your Thoughts. So the relationship between language and thought has provided a rich topic for anthropological, psychological, and linguistic research. Language, like culture, is a system we all create and define together. But unlike culture, it is tightly structured. The idea that language might shape thoughts has often been seen as a crazy and irrational and unsustainable at best. However, a new flurry of cognitive scientific research has caused a shift in consensus. All language are created and molded by the culture of the speaker. Efforts explain the cultural core of this rare language, which one simple formula: live here and live now. The only thing of importance that is worth communicating to others is what is being experienced in that every moment. And that's why all experience is anchored in the present. And research has shown that language can influence how we perceive and understand the concept of time. Alice Gabriel from the University of California, Berkeley gave speakers of different language a set of cards showing temporal progression, such as a man aging or a crocodile growing. And the speaker were then asked to take the shuffle photograph and arrange them in correct temporal order. English speaker given this task will arrange the cards so that the time process from the left to the right. But Hebrew speakers who read from the right to the left will tend to arrange the cards so that the time process from the right to the left, which shows us that the writing direction in a language can actually influence how we perceive and understand the concept of time. A language can go beyond affective our own abilities and conception, and they empower us to mold how an event appears and influence how others experience it. And language we speak not only help us to express our thoughts, but actually shape the very thoughts we wish to express. And the patterns that our language are made of immensely shape how we construct our individual perception of reality, build our opinion, and interpret the incredible complex knowledge system that we have. Okay, so the first question, what is the research finding about language can influence how we perceive and understand the concept of time? The answer is Alice Gabriel from the University of California, Berkeley gave speaker of different language a set of cards showing temporal progression, such as a man aging or a crocodile growing. Then the speaker were then asked to take a sample photograph and arrange them in a correct temporal order. English speaker given this task will arrange the cards so that the time proceeds from the left to the right. But Hebrew speakers who write from the right to the left will tend to arrange the cards so that the time proceeds from the right to the left, which shows that writing direction in a language can actually influence how we perceive and understand the concept of time. Number 2. What is the relationship between language and culture can influence someone's thoughts? The answer is the relationship between language and culture is complex one. The two are intertwined. A particular language usually points out the specific group of people. When you interact with another language, it means that you are also interacting with the culture that speaks the language. You cannot understand one's culture without accessing its language directly. Number 2, how language can go beyond affecting our own ability and conception to empower us to mold how an event appears and influence how others experience it. The answer is, I will give an example to explain the answer of this question. So consider former Vice President Dick Cheney's quail hunting accident in which Cheney accidentally shot Harry Whittington. In this case, one could say that Cheney shot Whittington, identifying Cheney as the agent of the event. One could say that Whittington was shot by Cheney, still indicating Cheney as the agent, but distancing him from the outcome. And lastly, one could say Whittington got shot, leaving Cheney out altogether. Cheney himself said that ultimately, I'm the guy who pulled the trigger that fired the one that hit Harry, interposing a long chain of events between himself and the outcomes. President George Bush said that he turned around and he heard a bird flash and he pulled the trigger and saw his friend get wounded, transforming Cheney from agent to mere witness in less than a sentence. Number 4, could different language shape and affect reasoning and thinking? The answer is yes, at least in one way. So Lera Boroditsky did a fascinating study looking into the way speakers of different languages that have gendered nouns think about the items or concepts that gender nouns portray. Number 5. What is the relationship between the language you speak and the way you perceive reality? The answer is the idea that the word, grammar, and metaphor we use result in our different perception of experiences have long been a point of contention for linguists, but just how much impact language has on the way we think is challenging to determine, cited Bader-Birmer, a professor of linguistics and cognitive science of Northern Illinois University. Other factors like culture, meaning, tradition, and habits we pick up from those around us also shapes the way we talk, and the things we talk about enhance or change the way we think or even how we remember things. Okay, so the next video is about the largest lizard on Earth, that is the Komodo dragon. So Komodo is a species that specializes in savannas, monsoons, forests, grassland, and coastal areas. And they are not as numerous as many other species and slowly declining as species with a sharper tongue than other organs. One that is omnivorous and love carrion. And Komodo live in Komodo Island. Komodo Island became a national park in 1980s to serve the conservation of care of this rare animal, including the Komodo dragon. And the Komodo dragon's food is becoming scarce, partly due to the climate change and partly because its prey is gradually disappearing. Komodo dragon mainly ate water buffalo deer and even rats. When they were young, they had to learn to be independent, struggling for life without their parents by themselves. The female dragons would leave before the eggs hatch. Maybe this is why, to keep it from thinking about eating their own eggs, like many other cold-blooded animals. Komodo dragons are merciless. They can kill and cannibalize their own child. Adult dragon will also sometimes climb trees to catch petite komodos. And young Komodo dragons live in a tree, so their food is mainly insects like spiders and small vertebrates. As adults, the foods will change. They will underwater buffalo or savanna. And the water buffalo can help them help the Komodo dragon not need to feed for about a month, but there are times when they need to take a large amounts of food to store it fat to be able to survive the harshest days of Komodo Island. And the Komodo dragon is a species that often fight for offspring. The one that wins will have the right to mate with offspring. They are often extremely fierce, and fight over a lover still take place regularly during the breeding season. And this animal were made for a few minutes. Male will use his tight tongue to capture the female scent and see if the female is ready. Its mating season runs from June to August. The first question, what is Komodo? So Komodo is a species that specializes in savannas, monsoon, forests, grassland, and coastal area. They are not as numerous as many other species and are slowly declining species with sharper tongue than other organs, and one that is omnivorous and love carrion. Number 2, why is the female Komodo leave the eggs before the egg hatch? The answer is this is the way to keep it from thinking about eating its own egg. Like many other cold-blooded animals, Komodo dragons are merciless and can kill and cannibalize their own child. Number 3, how do the young Komodos eat? Do the young Komodo also eat the same food like the adults Komodo? So the answer is no, they don't. It is because young Komodo dragon live in the trees, so their food is mainly insects like spider and small vertebrates. As adult, the food will changes. Number 5, how is the breeding season of Komodo? So the answer is the Komodo dragon is a species that often fight for offspring. The one that wins will have the right to mate with offspring. They often extremely fierce and fight over a lover and still take place regularly during the breeding season. And this animal were made for a few minutes, and male will use his tight tongue to capture the female scent and see if the female is ready. Its mating season runs from June to August. Number 5, what is the result of research related to Komodo saliva? The answer is, according to many research documents, Komodo saliva contains poison because it has about 57 bacteria and it is capable of causing infection. And there are no terrible teeth like crocodile, but when the mouth is fully opened, it is ready to swallow any ill-fated animal. For some species, once bitten by a Komodo dragon, they cannot survive. The wound will become infected, and all anti-coagulation occurs, and blood will flow from the wound at a lot, leading to death. Number 6, do Komodo also kill humans? And find a case that ever happened related about that. So the answer is Komodo dragon also attack people. An authorities in Indonesia said a Swiss tourist was sitting alone on the island when he was attacked by a flash strike. His camera was only found on the beach. And another case is a fisherman who lived near the island while searching for food and also killed and eaten in March 2009. Number 7, how big the Komodo is? The answer is an adult dragon Komodo can be up to 3 meters long and weigh about 160 kilograms, but on average they are only 1.2 meters long for females and 1.6 meters for male. Okay, another video is about the debate behind the video games violence. So, video games sometimes contain violence content, so there is an assumption that video games is bad for us. And psychologists have been studied this for decades. But right now, the research community includes a small but vocal subsections convinced that the perceived scientific consensus linking violence comes to aggression is completely wrong. There is zero connections between entertainment and behavior, and that's been cited over and over and over again, and even ruled upon by the Supreme Court. One of the Bashman's most recent studies looked at how playing violence games might affect what kids do if they find a gun. They used an actual handgun that had been disabled. We had them play and then they have to play the video games in Minecraft, and they had the gun version where they could master with a gun, and they also have sword version where they could master with a sword, and then they also have non-violent condition with no weapons and no monster. And then it found that the largest effect for the condition with the guns. Playing a violence game with sword also makes children engage in more dangerous behavior around guns. And the kids who played the violent version of the games were more likely to touch the gun, pull the trigger, and point it at themselves and others. And the smaller but very focal group of researchers, the evidence point in an entirely different direction. It don't generally find that playing more action-oriented games is predictive of violence or aggression later in life. It seems to be the knowledge of the fictional nature of what people are engaged with seems to blunt to any kind of learning experience from that. But video games might influence player thoughts, feelings, and physical arousal, affecting the individual's interpretation of other behavior and then encourage their own aggressive behavior. And in violence video games, there is definitely these three simulations where you can get the same pattern of the result for the laboratory experiment, cross-sectional studies, and longitudinal studies. And for the laboratory experiments, cross-sectional studies, and longitudinal studies, the magnitude of the effect is not especially small or especially large. It is about the same size effect that you get for most variables in social science studies. So exposure to violent video games in this case is not the only risk factor for aggressive and violent behavior, but it is not a trivial risk factor either. And the majority of published studies on the effect of the violence video do show some kind of effect on the player. Depending on the study, the findings could be correlational, demonstrating a connection but not attributing cause or causal, suggesting that the games actually cause the effect. But Christopher Ferguson and others take issue and disagree with the APA and Bashman. And the psychological community's perceived consensus that there is a link between violence and games of aggression. They said conflict of interest misguide the research methods and things like publication bias, and the idea that scientific journals are biased in which studies they decide to publish, and the replication crisis, the idea that some established research is unable to be later replicated. Okay, the first question. Why a lot of people think that video games is bad for us, especially for children? So the answer is, it is because sometimes in video games contains violent content that can influence someone's behavior. The exposure of violent content to children can encourage the children become an aggressive person and can hurt someone else. Number 2. How is the explanation of Bashman's most recent studies look at how playing violent games might affect what kids do if they find a gun? The answer is Bashman held a study to the children, and the children used an actual handgun that had been disabled. Then they play a video games in Minecraft. They had a gun version where they could master with a gun. They also had a sword version where they could kill master with a sword, or they had a non-violent condition with non-weapons and no monsters. It was found that the largest effect for the condition with the guns. Playing a violent games with sword also made children engage in more dangerous behavior around guns. And the kids who played the violent version of the game were more likely to touch gun, pull the trigger, and point at it to themselves and others. Number 3. What are the type of studies or research about video game? The answer is there are a few fundamental types of studies that can be done. In this situation, the first one is experimental studies, the second is cross-sectional studies, and the last one is longitudinal studies. And an experimental study involves a carefully constructed scenario in a controlled environment. Then there are also cross-sectional studies, which just mean you take some measurement at the one point and in a time and see if they are correlated. And lastly is the longitudinal studies, which are just like cross-sectional studies, except you take more than one measurement over time. Number 4, how is experimental studies is held? The answer is an experimental study involves a carefully constructed scenario in a controlled environment. You bring a participant, some of whom are asked to play violent games, and afterwards you measure their aggressive behavior, which is defined as any behavior intended to harm another person who doesn't want to be harmed. And if you're studying kids, you might just watch their behavior on the playground afterwards. If they are adults, you use a question process, like how long you make someone hold their arms in ice, and how long you blast someone with awful headphone noise, or give someone an electric shock. Number 5, how the procedure to do cross-sectional study to know the effect of video games. So the answer is you can take some measurement at one point in a time and see if they are correlated. So you could, for example, find people whose favorite games are violent and see if those people are more likely to have a history of aggression. Number 6, what are the clear evidence that there is a connection between playing violence, video games, and aggression? So the answer is, first, they can make us more aggressive. Second, they can make us more numb to the pain and suffering of others. And the third, they can make us more afraid of becoming victims of violence ourselves. Number 7, what is the causal link between playing a violent video games and behavior? So the answer is simulated violence in video games might influence a player's thoughts, feelings, and physical arousal, affecting the individual's interpretation of other behavior and then encourage our own aggressive behavior. Number 8, what is the Christopher Ferguson's opinion why a lot of people think that video games is bad for us, especially for children? So the answer is, it is because sometimes in video games contain violent content that can influence someone's behavior. So the exposure of violent content to children can encourage the children to become aggressive person and can hurt someone else. Okay, finally we come to the last video that will be talking about 3 ways to overcome anxiety. Okay, so when you have anxiety, you cannot believe in yourself. You cannot trust the person you are talking and don't believe that they are smiling at you because they are enjoying the conversation with you. When you have anxiety, you don't even consider that this person who asked you out might actually like something from you. It is because you always think that they just want to get something from you and they have no further interest about you. And if you have anxiety, it is difficult to believe any of this positive thing. Not because you are a pessimistic person, but because it's much more realistic to focus on the negative. Plus, if it doesn't work out, then you are saving yourself from the huge emotional crash. And according to research at the University of Cambridge, anxiety disorder are some of the most common mental health problems today. And women and young people under the age of 39 are the most affected. And other research shown that anxiety disorder are more debilitating and can stop you from going about your day-to-day tasks much more than illness like cancer or diabetes. And there is a difference between normal anxiety and anxiety disorder. Normally, anxiety is the stress when we feel before a deadline, so it makes us rush and make us motivates and mobilize us to do some action. However, if you take anxiety to the extreme and start arising in a situation which don't pose a real threat, that's when you might have an anxiety disorder. And there are different types of anxiety disorder. So social anxiety disorders stop you from making friends and it stop you from going out and trying to connect with people. Even though you might really want to, and you are always thinking, if only I could be like that person, or if I only could be normal, my life would be perfect. An anxiety disorder is generalized anxiety disorder in which you worry constantly about everything that is happening in your life. The worries are uncontrollable and they can keep you up for hours at night as your mind is replying worst case scenarios. And when you have anxiety, you are in this stress state and you might feel irritable, tense, and have a chest pain. And here are 3 ways to overcome your anxiety. The first one is stopping censoring what you say or do. Second is practice spending time with people who treat you well. And the last one is treat yourself like someone you love. Okay, the first question, what is social anxiety? So social anxiety disorder is an intense, persistent fear of being watched and judged by others. A specific social anxiety will be the fear of speaking in front of groups, whereas people with generalized social anxiety are anxious, nervous, and uncomfortable in almost social situations. Number 2, what are the effects of social anxiety? The answer is, when you have social anxiety, you cannot believe in yourself. You cannot trust the person you are talking and don't believe that they are smiling at you because of they are enjoying the conversation with you. When you have social anxiety, you don't even consider that the person who asks you out might actually like something about you because you think that they just want to get something from you and they have no further interest about you. Number 3, when someone has social anxiety, why it is difficult to see something in a positive way? So the answer is, it is because someone who has social anxiety just try too much more realistic to focus on the negative. Plus, if it doesn't work out, then they are saving their self-love the huge emotional crash. Number 4, what is the findings of the University of Cambridge related to social anxiety? So according to the research at the University of Cambridge, anxiety disorder are some of the most common mental health problems today, and the women and young people under the age of 39 are the most affected. Number 5, what is the differences between normal anxiety and social anxiety? So the answer is, there is a difference between normal anxiety and anxiety disorder. So normally, anxiety is the stress that we feel before a deadline. It is a resting feeling which motivates you and mobilizes you for action. However, if you take anxiety to the extreme and start arising in situations which don't pose a real threat, that's when you might have an anxiety disorder. Number 6, what is the example of normal anxiety? The example of normal anxiety is the stress that we feel before the deadline. It is just stress feeling which motivates you and mobilizes you to do an action. And another example, it is the stress that we have when we are walking home late at night and suddenly start to hear footsteps behind us and getting closer and closer, and rush is becoming over us and our hearts start beating faster and our breathing is getting faster and we feel so anxious. Number 7, how does it feel to have social anxiety? So the answer is, when you have social anxiety, it is feel like other people watching and judging you as you are talking to them. And even if you are talking to just one other person, you feel like you are putting on a show, you are on stage, and it's your cue to start the performance as you are talking. You feel like you are being stared at your gesture and moves and being noticed, and because of this, your shoulder and stomach getting tense and your face and arm being getting sweaty, and your mouth is becoming very dry, and the longer your conversation drags on, the more you feel like your weirdness is becoming more evident and you cannot escape for the trap. Number 8, why is social anxiety have been linked with heart disease? The answer is, it is because when you have social anxiety, you are in a stress state, and you might feel irritable stance and have chest pain. So can damage the circulatory system, and they can also damage the brain. Number 9. What is the correlation between social anxiety and happiness? So social anxiety can ruins your happiness, because when it comes to being happy, is having relationship with other people. Anxiety can ruin this. It can stop you from connecting with the people you want at work and in your personal life. Number 10. Why is someone with social anxiety always censoring what they say or do? The answer is because they don't want to offend anyone. They try to gauge the ideal time to bring out something, and they worry about the impact that they have on other people. If a situation is ambiguous, let's say they are talking to someone with neutral facial expression, or they are not sure how a situation is going to play out, they tend to assume the worst will happen because of this negative scenario going through their minds. And people with anxiety are afraid to speak and voice their ideas, or even avoid asking for what they need, be it at work or personal relationship. As a result, they feel exploitable, and they think others take advantage of them, and they feel unassertive. So yes, I think that's all that I can share to you related about the videos that I've been watched. And from that videos, I got so much insights, and I wish that you also can get it. And I think it's all enough. Thank you so much for watching this video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.